Hi, everybody. I'm Howard, and this is Otter's Corner. And I'm very happy to say that today we have a returning guest, Kathleen, who visited us a couple weeks ago, and we talked about assisted living. And today we're going to take that another step further, and we're going to talk about memory care. And before I get into that, we're also going to talk about long-term care insurance at the end of this, so stay tuned. Some people have asked me to discuss that. Very important part of this, so stay tuned for that. But play along with me here, very first. I'm going to say three words, and I want you to repeat the three words after I say them, and then we'll move on. So the three words are farmer, driver, and winner. I'll just repeat those. I'm going to trust that you're going to do it. Farmer, driver, and winner. Repeat those words. Okay, now, again, we're going to get back to Kathleen now. Kathleen, who has a degree in gerontology. She's a marketing manager for an assisted living and memory care facility, and she's a licensed administrator. If you haven't seen the previous video about assisted living, please go back and watch that because this will sort of piggyback onto that. And I'm going to talk about a couple of statistics according to the Alzheimer's Association, and that'll sort of set up what we're going to talk about. And what we have is about 6.2 million people in the US over 65 have Alzheimer's. 1 out of 9, or 11%, of people over the age of 65, mostly over the age of 75. Now, 67% of those people are women, and that's mostly, and Kathleen could verify this, mostly because women live longer, so they have a longer time to develop these diseases. A couple of sadder statistics is black people are twice as likely as white people to have Alzheimer's, and Hispanics are about 1.5 times more likely. And the reason they point to for that is that they tend to grow up in more polluted areas, they have less access to health care, less access to healthy foods, and probably live more stressful lives. And these are all things that they think lead to those cognitive diseases. And the numbers I talk about are just Alzheimer's, not other forms of dementia or any kind of cognitive decline. Now, the vast majority of these people are cared for at home, typically by relatives or friends, not professionals. There are professional at-home caretakers, but not typically what you see. Now, there's about 250,000 memory care beds in the U.S., and for those facilities, the average length of stay is about 2 to 3 years. Now let's bring Kathleen in the conversation. I'm going to ask you to talk about memory loss with diseases, with cognitive diseases like Alzheimer's, versus what we might typically consider a normal memory loss for people who are just normally aging.
So thank you for having me again. First, let me say that cognitive decline tends to be thought of as a normal part of aging. That is true with some caveats, of course. If you're in like the blue zones of the United States or the world, you'll see a lot less of that, again, because they have healthier lifestyles. But you'll see basic things like you're forgetting your keys or misplacing things. Those are kind of normal things that people do as they age. They'll misplace certain items, they'll forget they read a book, things along those lines. Very simple, innocuous type things.
And as you know, we got a little something up there on the board, how important it is for relatives and friends to keep an eye on older elderly relatives and friends to kind of look for signs, which brings up the question, what kind of signs should they look for?
Sure. So one way that a lot of people with significant memory loss kind of hide things from their family is to tell stories of the past. More often than not, they'll have a lot of short-term memory loss, but they'll still have their long-term memory intact. So they'll start to reminisce about things that happened 30, 40, 50 years ago. And you'll think, oh, they've got it all together and everything's fine because they remember these things. But they won't remember that they took their pills this morning or if they even ate today, or the last time they took a shower. So it's really about looking for those kinds of things. Another factor is where they start to blend more, shall we say, current events with things that happened 30 years ago. When they start to kind of coalesce, have those, confabulate those stories together, that's when you really need to start looking for a dementia professional.
Okay, good. So, say some of these people move into a facility like yours, what kind of services will these residents get?
First and foremost, they get 24-hour observation and assistance for whatever they need. It's going to be what we refer to in the business as ADLs, activities of daily living, and those cover dressing, bathing, transferring, grooming, toileting or incontinence care, medication management, and even eating assistance.
So, is there an advantage to a facility like yours, which has both assisted living and memory care, whereas people at home may not see the cognitive decline, but in your facility they will?
Sure. So first and foremost, people wait way too long to come to a memory care. So if somebody's living in our assisted living, we can monitor those changes from an earlier place and then make the move over to memory care as a soft transition as opposed to a very abrupt change to their environment. Most facilities will have an assisted living and memory care that have the same look and feel, with, of course, some alterations to accommodate the disease process, but it won't abruptly change that surrounding for them.
Okay, so we talked last time about assisted living typically averaging about $4,800 a month to live in one of the facilities. What's it look like for memory care?
Right. So the average for assisted living in the U.S. is 4,800. In most areas, you'll find memory care somewhere between 5 and 7,000 a month. Um, it's assumed that when someone is in memory care, they can no longer do any of those activities of daily living on their own. So you're getting that 24-hour care and oversight, as opposed to someone in assisted living who's going to need maybe sporadic help with things. So the care level definitely increases and the amount of attention to each person increases.
Okay.
So cost-wise, we're going to go from 4,000 in some areas of the country up to even 12,000 a month. So just be aware that it does vary greatly depending on your geography.
Okay, and the same question we asked last time with assisted living, how would people typically pay for this, especially considering they were already paying for assisted living? Does
Right.
Medicare cover it? And then long-term care insurance, which we mentioned earlier, how often does that happen? And, extend a little further in your opinion of long-term care insurance.
Sure. So with the vast majority of facilities, it's going to be private pay, private long-term care insurance that we're talking about. Medicare, of course, will pay only for what they would pay for at home. They don't pay for facility charges or care charges, anything like that. They'll pay for, home health care, wound care, things like that, but not the actual facility. And then there is Medicaid. Medicaid in some states pays a lot, in other states it pays a waiver amount, which could be as little as $1,400 towards the cost of care. And some facilities break out the care cost over room and board, so you have to be really careful about the questions you ask of your facility in your state about how Medicaid works there.
Okay, and I'm gonna, for those of you over 65 or on Medicare, you probably know what I'm gonna do next. I'm gonna ask you to repeat the 3 words I gave you at the start of this video. If you can do it, great, fine. If you can't do it, if you're under 65, you probably weren't expecting this. But for those of us who are on Medicare, what typically happens is you go to your primary care physician, and as part of you being on Medicare, each time you go, they're going to do this to you. They're going to say, I'm going to give you 3 words, repeat them to me. And then at the end of your exam, might be 5, 10 minutes later, they're going to say, hey, repeat those 3 words we gave you. And, Typically, I've always been able to get them. I kind of know what's going on. So they'll give me the three words and I'll repeat them to myself as we're talking. You know, one, two, three, one, two, three, one, two, three. So that when they ask me, I know it. So I cheat a little bit. But this is one of the indicators to them that there may be an issue going on. I don't know what comes after that if you get it wrong. Do you?
Well, so yeah, so those are considered like mini mentals, is
Yeah.
what they're referred to as mini mental tests. So if you don't pass that first level, they'll give you usually there's a couple names for them, but a longer version of that. They'll have you draw a clock and do some other things. A lot of
Done that.
people with dementia can no longer put numbers on the face of an analog clock and accurately report the time. So that's a really good indicator that you do have a dementia process happening as opposed to just an age-related memory loss.
Okay, so another checkpoint, fortunately.
And then you might get some MRIs and some other things.
All right, so we're gonna, I drew up a couple pros and cons of long-term care insurance because people are asking about that. So on the plus side, it protects your savings. So you have this pool of money that, regardless of how much you've paid in, they're going to pay the facility for your care. And it's not endless, but there is a pool of money there. It can provide inflation protection, and it remains active as long as you keep paying your premiums. So, they're not going to take it away from you as you get older or as you get sick or something happens to you. Pay your premiums and it keeps going. Now, on the con side is it's really expensive. And the latest price quote I saw, and this is just, an estimate. A 55-year-old who starts it will pay about $200 a month for $165,000 in coverage. Now that $165,000 can go pretty quickly. That could be 2 to 3 years. And again, that's the average length of stay, which is why you're seeing numbers like that. So it also may not cover all expenses. Different policies will cover different things. That's something you need to check with an insurance pro. I am not an expert on insurance. Kathleen is an expert in her field, but she's not an expert in insurance. Neither of us are licensed to sell insurance. So,
although I did sell it 25 years ago,
right,
but yes, the policies have changed greatly since then too.
The other issue is, while they can't raise your rates on you individually, they can raise rates on certain groups of people, and if you're in that group, you will see your price escalate as time goes on. Especially if you started earlier in your 40s or early 50s. The other thing is half of people never use it. So that money just goes to the insurance company. Obviously, they'll use that to pay other benefits, but it's a nice profit center for insurance companies. So it's kind of a use it or lose it. So the way I would look at it, I don't have long-term care insurance. As I looked at it, I thought, okay, you know what? I'm going to self-insure. I'm going to save enough money that if this happens to me, I'll be able to pay for it. Now, it gets a little tricky if you just have this one big pool of money and, you don't say this is for this, this is for this, this is for this. So you might want to start a separate bank account. And instead of sending $200 a month to an insurance company, put $200, $300, $400 a month into a separate account. Invest it in a mutual fund or an ETF balanced with stocks and bonds, just as you would anything else, and let that money grow over time. If you don't need it, you now have that money to spend for other things, whereas if it was insurance, you would just lose it. All right, so once again, I know we went a little long. I want to thank Kathleen for being here. Please, if you have questions, either put them in the comments below or email me. My email will be there. As always, please subscribe, please like, please share, comment. Thanks again to Kathleen, and thank you. Bye.